Welcome to Biocanic's Health Intelligence Exchange community, where leading practitioners in integrative health approaches will discuss how they solve the most challenging and common health issues. These regular Q&A discussions are designed to take a deep dive into case studies and integrative approaches in order to elevate the collective knowledge of both experienced and new practitioners alike. Biocanic's Health Intelligence Exchange, your community for functional medicine.
All right, welcome everybody to the Health Intelligence Exchange. This week, our guest is Dr. Tracy Gapin, and we'll be digging into switching from a traditional practice to a remote practice. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching and listening so you never miss an episode. And for those of you joining live today, we'll be transitioning to a live Q&A event at the end of this presentation. So please feel free to start posting your questions in the comments below, and the team will collect them as we go. Dr. Tracy Gapin is a board-certified urologist, world-renowned men's health and performance expert, and the founder of the Gapin Institute, the global leader in high-performance health. He has over 20 years of experience focused on health optimization, human performance, and longevity, providing executives and entrepreneurs a personalized path to fulfill their highest potential. Thank you very much for joining us today. So let's jump right in.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good to be here with you.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So can you give the audience a little bit of background about your practice and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I come from the urology world. As you mentioned, I was a urologist in a very busy practice for, 17 years. And I became very disillusioned with traditional medicine about halfway through that my practice time there. And I found a passion for human performance optimization. I found the world of genetics and precision medicine that led me to functional medicine, regenerative medicine, peptides, and finally really longevity. And I became so entrenched and passionate about this that I started incorporating some of these practices with my patients and saw amazing results. And next thing you knew, I had evolved from a very busy insurance-based urology practice to part-time urology and part-time human performance optimization longevity practice. And so I made a really bold move about 2.5 years ago when I gave my practice a 1-year notice to my partners that I was leaving so that I can really follow my passion and my heart. And so I launched the Gapin Institute for High Performance Health a year ago, last week, actually. We just finished a 1 year in business. And what we really do is, if I had to sum it up, is we help executives and entrepreneurs really accomplish 3 things: have more energy, lose weight, and have better sex. And that's really, if you think about it, what most people are looking for. How can I improve the quality of my life? How can I live a better life? And I really believe that the success you achieve in every area of your life starts and ends with your health. And so I work with a lot of executives who are struggling for various reasons. And I love to really dive deep and find the underlying etiologies and help them overcome that.
Awesome. And you were mentioning kind of in your history, you said about halfway through your traditional practice, you got frustrated. So what were those triggers that in the traditional practice that were really frustrating you, that kind of really pushed you towards this new virtual model?
Yeah, there's the typical frustrations that every insurance-based physician has, where you're really at the mercy of the insurance company with reimbursement. The documentation requirements are excessive and they continue to get worse. Every year, you'll get denials for various reasons for reimbursement for yourself. And then for your patients as well. I did, and I still do a lot of work with prostate cancer surveillance, prostate cancer detection. And I'd order a prostate MRI, for example, on a lot of guys, and we get denied. And even though there's clear literature showing the efficacy, the value, the reason for it, we would be fighting the insurance companies. We would fight insurance companies for coverage of prescription medications. It was a constant battle with the insurance companies, and then battling with the hospitals as well. The documentation requirements, all of the bureaucracy involved. It became one headache after another. But it was really, honestly, Jeremy, it was when I had some health issues of my own, when I went to go see a doctor to overcome it. I was overweight. I was like 30 pounds overweight, had belly fat. I like to say I had belly fat, brain fog, and body aches, and felt like crap. And I suddenly became very aware of the fact that traditional medicine is purely focused on treating disease, treating symptoms, and it made me reflect on my own practice that everything has an ICD-10 code and you can't treat anything. You can't get reimbursed for anything unless you have an ICD-10 code. And what a lot of people want is just to feel better. They want more energy. They want more out of life. They want to have better sex. They want to love their bodies. And that, some people call it biohacking. Some people call it human optimization. Some people call it human performance. It's about really how can you be your absolute best again. And so that is really what for me was the tipping point when I found this whole other world that made me realize that it's about choosing health, not treating disease. And so it became more of a philosophical, passionate shift for me. And suddenly leaving had a purpose behind it. Because before I would complain, frustrated about all the insurance nonsense. But when I finally had something else that I can go toward instead of going away from insurance, that's when things really changed and made the shift a lot easier.
Yes. So I think that's a great segue. So kind of thinking about your own journey, right? So, a typical, physician will graduate, you can go to practice, you can get an insurance contract, and people will kind of show up on your doorstep. But when you kind of leave the insurance world, you lose that kind of pipeline for the patients showing up at your door and always booking your appointments and keeping you fully scheduled. Talk to us a little bit about how you very succinctly articulated your niche, right? But how, where did that really start from, and what was the process you went through to really identify what is your ideal client? What were the did you fail along the way? How did you develop that process?
Great question. And we continue to fail every day. And I feel if you don't fail, you're not trying. It's kind of like skiing. If you don't fall, you're not really skiing. I feel that the messaging and the copy and the niche and your target avatar is the single most important thing that we as in me and my team jointly have worked on for 5+ years now. And that's really the key. I've spoken on tons of podcasts, on tons of summits, and a fairly robust blog. But it's when I can speak to that one person who I'm trying to reach, that's when things have really started to gain momentum. And that really comes from my passion for men's health. In my practice over 17+ years, it was all about, for me, men's health. That was what I gravitated toward. I loved working with men who had issues with sexual health or low energy or weight, couldn't lose weight, and testosterone therapy and how can they improve. I loved working with men for prostate cancer surveillance and screening and active surveillance, and how can we minimize the side effects to improve quality of life after prostate cancer treatment. And so for me, that was really a natural segue when I recognized this whole new world of cash-based practice and optimization. It was for me the challenge of how do I find the person who I'm going to really serve best, and that comes from the heart, and that comes from what I love doing, and that makes it easy. Articulating it was really the challenge, and it's finding how do I reach that person who I want to help, and that person has to want help. You brought up a great point that in the insurance world, you just put a sign on the door, and you get an insurance contract, and patients show up because the insurance companies will send them to you, and you'll get paid pennies on the dollar to take care of them, of course. But now I have to actually run a business. And so I like to say that I'm the founder and CEO of the Gapin Institute way before I say I'm a doctor now, because to me, it has evolved to where I get to run a business. And yes, I'm caring for patients. But what's really more impactful for me is I'm training other practitioners. I'm training other doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs around the country, how to run my high-level programs so that executives and entrepreneurs can have more energy, lose weight, and have better sex, you see. And so it's to scale. How do I do that? And I can accomplish that by training other providers under me. And that's where the business model starts to evolve. And that's where I really have found my passion.
In kind of developing your niche, do you have any kind of, you mentioned kind of failing. Did you have any failed mistakes that were kind of funny that looking back on it, you wish?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We were just actually this past weekend laughing about this. I had the Mojo method. It was my very first attempt at trying to create a niche for myself and, helping guys get their mojo back. And it was cheesy and corny, and it came up with all kind of phrases. And So yes, I've struggled along the way. I have tried various approaches that have failed, and what I can tell the listeners, other practitioners who are working on this, use the language that your avatar uses. So what I mean by that is I would try to come up with fancy health optimization phrases and live your fullest potential and all these kind of catchphrases that I would hope would catch on. But what it comes down to is you're talking to a human. Mm-hmm. And I was taught this to look at my avatar and ask simply, what do you want? And my avatar would tell me, I just want more energy. I just want to feel like a man again. I want to be my best self again. And so that's how we came to our tagline is be your absolute best again. We didn't just pull that out of thin air. It's from hearing my avatar say those words over and over and over again until I suddenly had to wake up and quit making the same mistake over and over again and just simply use their language. And so that simple approach has really changed things.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that is, when we have the conversations with a lot of clinicians that were where you were at, 5 years ago, one of the things is, how do I, I pay my mortgage, I feed my kids with my insurance-based contract. I want to get to where you're at today. How did you kind of prepare from a financial, from a business, from a mindset perspective? I mean, you talked about kind of doing half and half. How would somebody get trained in longevity medicine, functional medicine, while also still running their job? How did you prioritize that in your life?
Great question, Jeremy. And that's a real roadblock for a lot of doctors I talk to who want to get out. They're miserable. They hate insurance-based practice and they want to get into cash-based model. The first thing is you have to prepare for it financially. You need to have a cushion. I had a cushion built because I knew now 9.5, 10 years ago that I was going to leave. It was just a matter of how and what the hell was I going to do. And it took me about 5 years to figure that out. And then to execute took another 5 years. So first, build a cushion so that you have something to fall back on. When you first open your door, no one's going to show up. I had a very busy, high volume urology practice that I left, and none of those clients, and I hate to speak in absolutes, but nearly none of them were ideal clients for my current practice because they were all focused on treating their disease. They were using their insurance. They were so upset about their $20 copay. Now I'm going to get them to pay for $400, new patient visit, good luck. And so you have to prepare for the fact that those early days are going to be very slow.
Yeah.
What I did that was very helpful is I made it more of a gradual transition by starting it within my existing insurance-based practice. So I built this program, which we can talk about, and I offered it to my existing patients, and most of them, is it covered by insurance? Then no thanks. But there were just a few that would bite. And I would run this program with them on the side during lunch, evening hours, weekends, nights. I would do my visits with them virtually, and I would do everything I had to do for the marketing and the messaging and the business and writing blog articles and website stuff, nights and weekends. And I was doing that on the side so that I can continue my practice. I have talked to many physicians who are in a group practice or work for a hospital such that if they were to start doing that themselves, their entity, their hospital, their practice would garnish some of those dollars coming in, the cash model dollars. So you want to work that part out as well. So I had it built into my existing practice that whatever you eat, whatever you treat, you eat, whatever revenue you generate, it's yours. And so I was able to do that from within a group practice, but a lot of doctors can't. So that might be a big stumbling block. But I was able to gradually build this practice up within my existing urology practice such that I was initially doing it a half a day a week, and then it was a whole day a week. And then at the end, when I left, I was probably spending 50 to 60% of my work hours running this cash-based business and doing urology almost on the side at that point as I gradually kind of evolved, made that transition. And that was helpful so that when I did formally leave urology, July 1st of 2021, I had some book of business that I had built over those, couple of years leading up to that. So financially, that was important. Getting capital, I think, is critical as well. The construction loan I took out to do my build out was substantial. So if you can find an existing office space that's already built out, that would be ideal. I couldn't in my case, so I had to take out a pretty big loan for that. So I'm paying down the debt on that slowly over time. But that's easy to find capital for that, and long-term debt's not too bad. But it's generating revenue enough to pay yourself in the beginning, which is tough, and that's where that cushion is really important.
Yeah. So just kind of piling onto the generating revenue side, every clinician is taught everything about clinical, not really operations, long-term debt, construction loans. What about the selling side, right? So, think back to your first sales conversation, right? Yeah. I don't think there's a sales class in medical school. So how did you, what was the most uncomfortable thing, and how do you get somebody to reach into their pocket, pay out of pocket?
Yeah. It's a great question. We as doctors are terrible at sales, terrible at cash. The idea of asking a patient for cash now, to me, just seems ordinary, just another transaction, no big deal. My highest level program is $24,000 for 9 months. And I don't think that's unreasonable for the value that we provide. And most patients don't either. And so it's getting comfortable with that. Interestingly, my PA here in my office, when he first started working with me, I think the program, my highest level program at that point, when I left urology, it was $7,000. Mm-hmm. He thought that was very high. How are you gonna sell that? And he quickly realized how much value we provide. And he would start raising the prices when he would do a couple of sales calls. He would raise the prices himself on his own, and found that people would buy it. So the answer is really being comfortable with cash, being comfortable with simply sharing the value you are going to provide, the transformation. It's not really a sale. It's really a transaction between two people where I'm like, look, Joe, you're struggling with A, B, and C. This is how I can help you. And imagine what it's like if you can overcome those and what that would feel like for you. And it's getting people to buy into the transformation that you provide. And then it's not really a sale. It's people want that. You're giving them what they want. There's just value attached to that. And so it's really a pivot in your mindset of how you approach that transaction.
Yeah. I mean, I came into this space working with my wife, right? And, when I got to 240 and then I had that health transformation of 40 pounds. And if I, what would I have paid to not have that happen in 2018, but have that happen in 2013?
That's right.
And I think being able to articulate the vision and give some level of certainty that, this is actually a better way to spend money that you're already spending today, right? You're doing your gym membership, your juice cleanse, you got a bunch of supplements from Costco, nothing's really working yet. You're still spending the money. Now let's spend it in the right way.
Yeah.
I think is the ability for a practitioner to create the vision of what the other side looks like. I think once you can do that, then that really becomes the sale. So
yeah. Another angle on that, Jeremy, is put it in a different way with the client. And I view them now as clients rather than really patients per se. That's a shift, a mindset shift as well. It's what is the cost of not making a decision to transform your life right now and overcome the challenges you're having? What's the cost of not doing everything you can to be able to be there for your family and to, live your best life and overcome the issues that you're having? And that's where the power is, when you can help people understand that you can't put a price on some of those things.
Mm-hmm. So maybe shifting gears a little bit and kind of building the practice, obviously, there's a lot of tools out there, thinking about kind of marketing, we do talk to a lot of practitioners that go out and spend for Facebook ads and, their email lists, or they may, buying lists or whatever. What did you start with? Where have you landed? What do you wish you would have known, a year ago when you really kicked this off?
Yeah. I started my blog about 5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Right around there was when things really started. And I did the slow, organic, SEO process of writing blog articles and hoping that people would see it and come. And in this day and age, that just, it doesn't work. That's not the right approach. It's going to take forever and you can't wait that long. And so I would say that the key to get going quicker is you got to create a funnel. You're going to have to pay for traffic. You're going to have to create some sort of way to generate revenue, generate clients, generate, people coming to see you, leads. And so you can either have paid traffic, organic, or affiliates, partnerships. And it's one of those three. And organic takes forever. And so it comes down to really paid and affiliates. And so I would recommend, looking at creating a funnel, a consistent funnel that works for you. And that's going to be different for every niche, what that funnel may be. We're currently running a webinar funnel that seems to be working very well. For me, I find that speaking on stage is highly effective. I do a ton of podcasts, a ton of summits, a ton of interviews. And when people hear me speak and they can hear my message and my mission and how I can help, transform your life, that's when the magic happens. And so I would say that get out there as soon as you can, speak as much as you can, but you're really going to have to create connections and affiliate partners with people who can help refer patients your way and pay traffic.
And then so on the tool side, there's obviously a lot of practitioners that are kind of struggling in kind of different platforms. Obviously, we'll kind of come to the Biocanic side first, but what tools have you kind of experimented with, and what have been the struggles, and kind of what are the learnings from that side?
What's Biocanic? I'm kidding. So I've been through so many EMRs I can't count. The problem with the traditional EMRs that medical doctors are accustomed to is that they are purely based and structured on ICD-10 and CPT codes. They're based on disease model medicine, on insurance codes, on prescription medications, on proper documentation to support your E&M coding. And now none of that matters to me. None of that's helpful. So for me, it's now it's about gathering patient data. And by data, I mean genetics, lab work, blood tests, functional tests like microbiome tests, like cortisol, like organic acid tests, things that traditional medicine we never even heard of. We never don't know anything about. We never use these kind of tests. These are cash-based tests, not covered by insurance, and they get ordered from various different labs, Diagnostic Solutions, Genova Diagnostics, KBMO, for example, different labs that we use. And these test results are all coming in. Wearable tech data. All my clients have to use a wearable device. That's non-negotiable so that we can track things like sleep and heart variability. We use CGM, continuous glucose monitoring, so that we can track blood sugar. So we have all this data to look at. We have blood tests, functional tests, genetics, wearable tech data. Where is all that going to come in an easy interface that you can review it, interpret it, document it, and then make recommendations on prescribing supplements, hormones, peptides, which I do a ton of, and prescription medications. And most of the stuff I use are things that I'd never used in urology, never heard of in urology. So it's basically learning almost a new language. And then the charting is similar to what I did in traditional medicine, but I don't need all of the detailed information that you need. You don't need the ICD-10 code, for example, anymore, because I'm not using insurance. And so it changes some of the charting. So my struggle, going back to answering your question in a very long about way here, Jeremy, is most traditional EMRs did not work for me at all. They were a struggle, and they just got in my way, and I felt like I was putting a square peg through a round hole. And that's really where, honestly, I came to Biocanic.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that, EMRs are all built around the same model, which is documentation for the purposes of billing, right?
Purely.
Anything else.
Absolutely.
The patient portal experience just doesn't cut. Maybe let's come back to your program. So, how, you've grown that since being in your traditional practice on a side job. Now you're thinking, what is your end-to-end $24,000 program? So I walk in the door, write a check for $24,000. What does my experience look like? Yeah.
So the program integrates several facets that I have come to learn over the last 8 years now. Men need to accomplish the outcomes they're looking for. Again, it's all about, what do I got to do to provide that transformation? And so there's the medical component, first of all. So Medical component consists of a very comprehensive lab panel, probably about 200 labs, 200 different tests in that blood panel. Things that we don't traditionally do in traditional medicine. I'm looking at things like ApoB, LPPLA2, LP(a) for lipids. I'm looking at fasting insulin. I'm looking at homocysteine, and I'm looking at CRP. I'm looking at things like ferritin, looking at hormones like DHEA, and do a full cortisol panel. That's saliva-based, separate from the blood panel. A comprehensive hormones, looking at free T3 and free testosterone, DHEA I mentioned, vitamin D, doing a lot of micronutrient testing, organic acids. You remember Krebs cycle from medical school? Well, every piece of that pathway is important, and so organic acid testing is key. Food sensitivity testing we do, and cortisol testing, as I mentioned, microbiome stool testing to look for dysbiosis, imbalance in the microbiome, damage to the gut wall, signs of inflammation. All those tests are part of the management, and then I could put together a plan of prescribing for things, hormones, supplements, peptides, and prescription medications according to those findings. It starts with a comprehensive health assessment, diving into their health issues, their health goals. What are they trying to accomplish? What have they tried in the past? Some of the traditional medical history stuff that we do in my insurance world. A lot of lifestyle stuff, looking at stress and sleep and activity and mindset stuff and nutrition. What are you eating in very fine detail? Stuff that we traditionally would never spend time on in insurance-based world. It now becomes really first and foremost. So that's all the medical side of things. I work with health coaches. I have functional diagnostic nutrition or FDN trained health coaches. I have 5 working for me now as part of my team. They work with the clients on lifestyle coaching, nutrition, fitness, sleep, stress, mindset, detox, and they do a lot of the functional testing. They help track the wearable device data. So all my clients get an Aura ring. They all get a Polar H10 HRV strap. They all get a CGM, and they all get a body composition scale. And my coaches work with them on tracking that data so that we can see outcomes. And so on the medical side, we track lab outcomes. On the coaching side, we track wearable outcomes. I use biologic age testing to look at change in biologic age as an outcome metric as well. And putting all those pieces together is how we can really show that we're making a difference. Genetics are a big part of it as well. So when we first start, you do a cheek swab, and about 3 weeks later, we'll get the data back and present a really comprehensive, like 80-page report that goes through genetics around nutrition, supplementation, detox, fitness, hormones, and sleep, and can give really individualized recommendations around each of those areas. And that will guide a lot of our prescriptive maneuvers. And then as a concierge wrapping around it all, I like to say a concierge package where we have a client concierge so that when patients need refills of anything, when they need appointments, maybe when they have questions about anything, they have like a concierge access to us. So the program is built as a 20-session program over about 9 months, but most people probably take closer to a year to get through the program. And it is a concierge level program. I like to treat every guy like a VIP. And, I think of what would I want myself going through the program. And we do treat a lot of women as well. So it started out with just men's health, but then the wife started saying, well, hey, what about me? I want this too. And so I have a nurse practitioner in my practice who does purely women's health and a lot of hormones and Botox and filler. And so she handles the women's health patients, clients, so that I can focus on the men's health.
Awesome. And then maybe shameless plug, quickly touch on how we're kind of helping you out with that whole program.
Oh yeah, Biocanic is awesome. So yeah, and that's a big reason I'm here with you, Jeremy, today, as I really fully support Biocanic. I am personally invested in Biocanic myself because I believe in it, and I see the future of how do we enable cash-based practices like my own. I'm doing this selfishly for me. It's not about anyone else but me. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
How do I improve the experience so that from the charting aspect of it, from the prescribing aspect of it, from the user interface as a patient, How do I integrate all these pieces? So how can I see the genetics and the lab results and the wearable tech data and the documentation all in one place? How can I collaborate with my coaches so that it's a seamless process? How do I automate the scheduling so that patients can self-book their own appointments with me and it shows up on my calendar? How can I do all of that seamlessly? And I can see that Biocanic can really help me accomplish that. And so working with Jeremy and your partner, Andy, has been amazing because they've been so agile. I'll share this. This is great. We were at Mindshare Leadership Summit a couple months ago, and I was talking to Jeremy, telling him about the genetics report and how I'd love to be able to integrate the genetics. And he said, well, send me the report. And I sent him, it's a PDF document report. And there's like 750 SNPs on this report. An hour later, Andy had already coded it to where it's already integrated the data into the report. So each of those genetic SNPs are now data points rather than just a PDF image document. And so that's how agile and nimble and flexible they are at making it work for providers. And so I wholeheartedly endorse Biocanic. I love it, and I could see the future for my practice. And I'm working to really create a platform to where other providers of my G1 program that we talked about previously can use Biocanic so they can flawlessly integrate that for their practice as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the compliment. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
He I have to twist his arm to listen. But yeah, maybe touch on kind of your broader vision around kind of for practitioner training programs and where you kind of want to see yourself taking this particular approach.
Yeah. My passion is men's health, unequivocally. How do I transform the paradigm of men's health away from the traditional passive, reactive, one-size-fits-all insurance model based on here's your testosterone, here's your Viagra, see you in 3 months, to how do we change that to get men to be proactive, to live with purpose, to focus on their health, understanding how that's affecting every other aspect of their life. And so it's getting men to stand up and quit being passive and recognize that they have the control to define their life. And in my mind, it's not just a medical practice for me, it's a movement. And so my work, it has really very quickly pivoted to how do I train other practitioners and providers to run my program so that I can reach more men. And to me, that's what it's really all about. And so as a CEO and a businessman, it's about creating processes and systems and implementing those. And that's where Biocanic comes in so that I can create an authentic, consistent experience for every guy who comes through the door.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those listening, we'll post the contact information and on how they could get in contact with you if they are interested in learning at the end of this. So, so you mentioned you hired a number of FDNs or functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. Do you recommend that those that they're transitioning to, how would you think about kind of staffing up relative to kind of this whole transitional approach and the kind of training and onboarding approach that you kind of plan for?
Yeah, I've talked to tons of practitioners who want to go out and hire another practitioner or coach. I've talked to urologists, I've talked to orthopedic doctors who are trying to make the move, ER docs, and the first thing they want to do is go hire a PA nurse practitioner to do the work for them so they can build the business. And it doesn't work that way. You have to be the practitioner first, because that's how you learn what your avatar wants and what they need. And then you can create your programs, and then you can start hiring people around you. And so I would caution people, providers, practitioners who are looking to make the pivot to, number one, obviously create that financial cushion. Number two, do the work yourself so that you can really understand that transformation for your client. What do they want? What do they need? What does it take to get them there? Mm-hmm. And then gradually start to bring in some support as you build and as you grow. Your first hire should not be another provider. It should be someone to help get you more clients, get you more patients. And that's typically like they call it like an appointment setter or a salesperson, someone who can really help bring in the leads for you. That's your first hire. And then once you get going, once you start generating revenue, generating business, that's when you start looking at hiring another provider or practitioner.
Yeah. And then you said kind of like this kind of consistent, concierge, high end experience. How do you kind of instill the values and the vision and the approach with those health coaches or FDNs that you bring on? Are you writing large, process documents? Like, how do you think about that from an operational perspective?
Yeah, great question, Jeremy. And I'm obsessed with process and systems. And one of my favorite movies is Founder, with Ray Kroc and the whole McDonald's development from the beginning. And it's all about systems. And I made the mistake very early on when I launched. This was very on shit. That was a year ago. I launched with very few systems in place, and we instantly failed because my nurse who came with me from my urology practice was doing everything the way she was accustomed to do it in urology. And that doesn't work in this world. And so I very quickly realized that I had to have systems in place on how do you order a product from this pharmacy? How do you make an appointment? How do you answer the phone? How do you sign your emails? How do you welcome a person? How do you bring them in the office? Like every little thing needs to be documented so that it's a system, it's a process, so that now that I've had 6 other nurses come through, each of them can follow that same process. And I know that it's the same experience. And so the one single thing you have to perfect is systems.
Mm-hmm. And so are you having them kind of your first person, like document that as a part of their job? So, hey,
exactly. Yeah. So the way to do that, exactly. Have the, my PA, he made his SOPs, he made his practices document. And now how do you share that? And I'm actually currently refining mine. I've had a number of different SOP systems previously. I'm actually transitioning now to a system called UpCoach, where you can put all in there as documents, as well as videos, as well as quizzes. You can follow progress and have your staff actually go through each of the modules programs, and actually they have to be signed off. They have to, complete quizzes to confirm that they are aware and understand each system and process in place. And this goes down to another key part I haven't touched on is values. And I didn't do this early enough either. Another big mistake I made. I talked about my values. I talked about what was important for me. I have a sticky note here of, single most important thing in my business that has been here since we opened. And that is our main goal. The single most important thing to happen is to provide an amazing, unparalleled concierge level patient experience.
Yeah.
And everything needs to follow that. And so what are the values? And so we have been working on really instilling the values in my team, and that's going into UpCoach as well, so that they all go through that same, training process. But that's a great question. And this is for me been a lot of challenge, but joy as well, to build something like this around a foundation of values. And it's something that we never did in traditional medicine. But now I recognize as a CEO how important it is for your company to grow.
Awesome. And one last question for you. So knowing what you know now, and having waited 5 years to transition, what's the one thing that you wish you would have done originally that would have kind of helped you along this journey?
Done it sooner.
Yeah.
Done it. Yeah. Unequivocally. Once I finally jumped ship, and it's a massive transition, it's a massive move, and I don't make light of it. But once I did it, once I got going, I was like, I can't believe I waited so long to do this, because I can say with no uncertainty that I love what I do. And I can tell you, when I was in urology, I hated every day. But now I love what I do, and I love the experience I'm providing. I love the transformation I'm providing, and I believe in the value I provide. And my programs are $6K, $15K, and $24K. And I think those are low, and I'll probably be raising them pretty soon here. But it's with merit. It's because of the outcomes that I provide.
Yeah. I mean, it's really exciting to see how excited people are when they get out of the system to be able to go back and practice medicine and, affect people, but also work with people on a deeper level, and not just the 15 minutes, 10 of which is charting in an EMR for a reimbursement and an E&M code.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. We'd love to start opening up the Q&A to the larger audience. I know our team's already collected a lot of questions and from the room. So definitely also, if you do have questions, wherever you're watching, please post them in the chat. We'll try to get to them as quickly as we can. So the first one is, do you find that your practice has increased in clientele or decreased since the switch?
My volume over the last 3 months has exploded. Those first 6 months were slow. It grew each month over month. So I'll be happy to be fully transparent. My gross revenue for the first calendar year now, December to December, was 2 million. And so that's gross. But I'm sharing that transparently just so other practitioners can recognize that that's how quickly you can get going and make a living and, replace the money you were making. It's a very different business model, obviously. But yeah, to answer the question, the volume was slow in the beginning. And as my messaging and offer improved, that's when it started really converting. In the beginning, a lot of people were like, well, how do I work with you? And I had the other mistake I made, Jeremy asked mistakes. I had low ticket offer and programs. So someone could come see me as a new patient was first 300, then we bumped it to 400, but then a follow-up visit was only $200. And so I had this 6, 8, 10, 12K program at the time, or I could just come in for a $400 new patient and then $200 follow-up every 3 months and kind of get the same stuff. And yeah, skip the genetics and coaching and wearable tech stuff. Just give me the hormones and the peptides. And, guys want the quick, easy fix. And the outcomes for those guys was dismal because they weren't getting the full experience. And financially, it wasn't lucrative either. And so we went through a real pivot there where we recognized we had to base it on programs, knowing that putting all those pieces together is where the magic happens. And so once I solidified and really made it clear, how do you work with us? Like how you do that now is it starts with a high performance health consultation. It's $400. On that visit, I guarantee you, I'm going to help you understand what you need to do to transform your health. We're going to dive into your health issues. What are your goals and how I can help you get there? And I guarantee you at the end of that visit, you're going to find value in that visit. And if you don't, you're not going to pay me anything. You're going to take that 400 back and I won't charge it if you don't find value. If you do find value, you're now going to be able to roll that into one of my 3 programs, G1, Silver, Gold, and Platinum for 6, 15, or 24K. And you can, again, roll that 400 into one of those programs. That's how you work with me. That's it. Super clear, crystal clear. I help you get those 3 things I talked about earlier: better energy, lose weight, have better sex. And once I became super clear with that message, and that's how you work with me, and that's it, it became so easy. Yeah. And it sounds limiting. Like so many people, including myself in the beginning, like, well, can I just offer this and this and this? So I'll try. The more things I offer, the more things I'll find. And when you become laser focused on, I only help this person accomplish this, it actually makes it so much easier and you attract more people because now you're clear about who the person is that you help. And the universe comes together to, I'm missing the word there, but the universe collides to bring you the avatar that you're looking for.
Yeah. It's one of the things we always emphasize, especially with people that are a la carte, is that they're, the upfront work and understanding an individual through an intake assessment, thinking about just the IFM client intake form, right? It's something like 1,000 questions. Yeah. That alone is 2 to 3 hours. And if you're only charging $300 for a visit, plus your admin, your overhead, your scheduling, yeah, you just never get right side up unless you really get for those big commitments.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest pivots, Jeremy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is going from the E&M world where we're charging based on, how much time you spent level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all bullshit. It's all about the transformation that you provide. And there is a value to that we underestimate as insurance-based providers. And so think about it as the transformation that you create for that individual. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah. So next question, do you find that this business structure actually aids in client retention?
100%. Yeah. People who work with me, they want to work with me. They love it. They love the outcomes, and completely opposite from disease model world. And so disease model world, they're there to get their medication refilled, deal with whatever symptoms they're dealing with. And then they're gone, and that's it. And they'll rarely follow any lifestyle guidance you give them, any recommendations. They'll probably barely even take the medications you prescribe. People who are here, they want to be here. And so, yes, 100% improve retention.
We kind of touched on this a little bit, but what tips do you have for a practitioner who wants to make the switch?
Find your niche, find the perfect avatar who you treat and how you can help them. Be laser focused on that very tiny niche and double down on that niche, and then start speaking about it. Put up a simple, easy, cheap website. Do not spend a lot of money. Don't buy much to get going. and share your message, share your mission, the impact that you want to create. I've been speaking on a lot of stages. Some were free, some were paid. And I found that when I watered it down and tried to change my message to the audience, to the community, it didn't work. It didn't convert. And people didn't get it. When I finally said, this is what I am, and this is what I do, and this is how I help people, it suddenly became really easy. And so I think that's the single most important part, is to really find your niche and get your messaging down first.
Yeah. And maybe I just realized that there might be some confusion with Avatar, with the new movie coming out. So it's your ideal customer profile.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Avatar is like that one person in the, if you have an audience of 1 million people, what's that one person that you're talking to? Male or female? How old are they? What do they do? What are their goals? Where do they drive? What kind of job do they have? Do they have kids? Like all those very granular details about that target person, that target customer of yours, is going to help you be really clear with your messaging. So now whenever you write a blog article, you put up a website, or you make a social media post, think of talking to that one single person. And that makes it so much easier than trying to come up with kind of bullshit esoteric stuff that you think works for everybody.
Yeah, and I think also as a consumer who's been through the functional medicine side, is paying for it, you're more likely to be compliant and engage with somebody you identify with. And if you can clearly identify with the practitioner because they articulate who they are and what they do, that's going to drive that buying behavior, but also compliance and the outcomes, because we resonate, we're connected, we see things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So another question, what marketing strategies or tactics did you implement to help your audience find value in the new business structure? I guess this is more around kind of your new pricing design. Going from to your packages.
Oh, is it like for practitioners? Is that what the question's about?
Yeah, I think, how did, when you finally got to your niche market and you structured your 615 or 24K packages.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Off of a la carte, what were the marketing strategies that?
Oh, I see. I see. Good question. I think it's being authentic. It's being real, coming from a place of, look, Joe, I worked with men like you for 20 plus years, and I know what moves the needle. I know that testosterone alone is not the answer because of A, B, and C. I know that Viagra alone is not the answer because of D, E, and F. And I believe that based on my experience, this is how I can help you, and this is why, and this is what it looks like. And these are different ways to work with me, and these are the pros and cons of each. And it's really just being real and authentic. I'm like, hey, this is what you need, and this is what I recommend, and yeah, that's the price. It's worth it. And when you stop caring about the sale is when you get the sale. When you're not desperate, like I honestly don't care if the guy enrolls in one of my programs or not. I know that I'm providing a value and providing service to them. And that's when things change. Kind of like when you're chasing that girl and, when you finally quit caring, that's when she comes back, to you. Same kind of concept.
Yeah. Just jumping ahead, maybe I see one question here about Oura Ring. You mentioned that it's mandatory to have a wearable in your practice, right? And that, wearables have been kind of nice, but haven't really made it into mainstream medical, even though they've tried to get there, right? So you talk about Oura. What about other fitness trackers? And then how do you actually, what value does that provide clinically, right? So walking 10,000 steps a day is not a clinical health metric.
Right.
Is that actually used in your program?
Yeah. So for the disease model practitioners out there, we never talk about sleep, right? You never once bring it up to your clients and you sleep. Okay, cool. Sleep is critically important, and most people don't have a clue how well they sleep. They may say I sleep 7 hours, but what you really care about is the quality of sleep. And specifically what I mean by that is we want to measure deep sleep. How many minutes of deep sleep does a person have? And typically your target for that is 60 minutes at least. REM sleep is important for different reasons, and you typically want about 120 minutes, 2 hours of REM sleep. The only way to get that data is to track it and to track outcomes so that there are things that I can do to improve quality of sleep. I need to be able to track that and show outcome data. And so there are a lot of wearables out there. I love Garmin. I wear a Garmin all the time, but when it comes to sleep, the Oura has been validated against polysomnography sleep study data. And so we know that it's the absolute best when it comes to getting that information. Apple sucks. Whoop is okay. Garmin for sleep is just okay. and some of the other devices I think are inferior. When it comes to HRV, heart rate variability, which is a direct measure of physiologic stress, which we care about for a lot of reasons, because that's going to crush energy, crush hormone production, increase storage of visceral fat, and it's going to destroy your gut and a lot of other things. So we care about physiologic stress. The best way to actually track that and measure that is with heart rate variability, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, it's the variation in heartbeat from one beat to the next. So when you say your pulse is 60, it's actually varying by microseconds each beat. So 60.01, 59.99, 60.02, for example. Tracking that variation is a direct surrogate for the balance of your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, called HRV, or heart rate variability. So I know that the Polar H10 strap that I give my clients, by the way, as part of this program, I give them all the labs, I give them wearable technology, give them the genetics, give them all this stuff, because I believe it's really critical. Now I can track their HRV on a daily basis, and when we see disruption in that or changes in that, we can understand why. For example, one guy, every Friday his HRV tanked. It dropped. Higher HRV, better, lower, worse. His tanked. We found out that every Thursday night he was going out and having a bottle of wine with his wife on date night. And so recognizing that, now we can make lifestyle choices and changes, understanding how his lifestyle is directly affecting that. And so that's why the wearables are so important. The body composition scale is critical for me, because weight doesn't matter. Weight is completely insignificant. We care about lean muscle mass. We care about visceral fat, body fat content. And weight will often not very much at all, whereas those metrics may vary a lot. And so that's why the wearable stuff is so important. And again, we're all about outcomes now. When you transition from insurance-based to cash-based, you got to provide an outcome. That's what they're paying you for now. It's no longer about, they're not just paying you for your time, they're paying you for the outcome. And so now I can quantify. I have the biologic age test, the true age test I do, for example. I have a great example of a woman who worked with me for 1.5 years, and she got 6 years younger during that 1.5 year time. And so I can quantify the actual outcomes that we have. So that's why the wearable devices and the other data are so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there, and you kind of touched on this a little bit before, but are there any lab/tests that you specifically recommend or are focused? I know you've tried them all, so.
Yeah, I've done them all. I do a ton of blood work testing. That's, again, like a panel of about 200 different tests that I look at. I do microbiome testing on everybody. I use the GI map test for that. I do organic acids, the metabolomics test through Genova Diagnostics. I do the FIT test through KBMO, the FIT 132. Mm-hmm. There's a bigger one as well. I do the middle package there, which is food sensitivity testing. I do cortisol testing, which you can either do through a direct cortisol test by itself. You can do it through Genova or a couple other companies. The Dutch test is a great test as well, which has cortisol as well as neurotransmitters, as well as estrogen metabolism, DHT, and some other great markers. So I like the Dutch test as well. Genetics are obviously important as well. The true age true age test, biologic age testing, I think is really valuable only if you can do it multiple times. So doing it once, it's fun information of what your physiologic age is, but when you can show change over time, that's when the real value is. And so the newer version of it is the PACE test. It's where you can look at the pace or rate of aging. That to me is really valuable, because now you can see in this snapshot in time, is what I'm doing helping me or hurting me, and kind of quantify the actual velocity of aging, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Next question. You mentioned there are multiple levels of pricing. Is your pricing based on the individual's needs, or is it more of a tiered system where each tier provides a specific level of service?
Yeah, I just made it up. No, I'm kidding. So they're different. Short answer: different levels of service. And this comes down to knowing your target audience, knowing the client you work with. What do they want? What do they need? And so I have found 3 different levels of service that guys ask for. This comes from experience. This comes from years of doing this. The first level, which is silver, which is the 6K program, it's purely medical. It's give me hormones, peptides, supplements, and medications. And that's the guy. You could picture this guy. He's 48 years old. He does CrossFit every day. super, super healthy. He has 8% body fat, and he is obsessed with biohacking. And he's like, Doc, I just need the hormones and I just want some peptides. Peptides are amazing. I've heard about them, but I want good quality products. And can you recommend the best peptides for me based on what I'm doing? And absolutely, that's the guy who's great for the silver. He doesn't need the coaching, doesn't want the genetics, he already has a bunch of wearable tech. He's doing all the biohacking stuff. He just needs the peptides and the hormones, and that's silver guy. The next guy is a guy who is 50. He's a wealth advisor, and he's doing a couple things right, but a lot of things wrong. And he's like, I just need to know, what do I eat? I need to lose 30 pounds. His hormones are a mess. Testosterone's not working for him. He knows he needs more than that. And so Gold, the middle level, now incorporates coaching. So the FDN coach will work with them on lifestyle choices, on what do you eat, making sure they're eating, reasonable nutrition, general macro recommendations, not personalized, not based on any data, but really just general recommendations, avoiding seed oils, avoiding sugar, really focusing on good quality, whole food diet, working on improving sleep, working on recovery time and stress resilience and mitigation, incorporating a fitness schedule into your life, and using CGM tracking so that we can know if what you're doing is working in terms of regulating blood sugar, metabolic health. That's the guy who wants to lose weight, adding the coaching on 15K. The top program, 24K, is the guy, he's 55. He has sold his business. He has, $50 million in the bank. And now he is an entrepreneur doing a couple different things here and there. And he's like, dude, just give me everything. I want to be the best I could be. Now that I am remarried to this hottie, I got to live to 100 and healthy and keep, solid erection every night and keep going. And I can't stop. And that guy is willing to pay for anything and everything that we do. And he's obsessed with learning new stuff. He wants the genetics. He wants the wearable tech. He wants all the functional testing. He's like, give me everything. I want to do any longevity protocol you have. Give me the best peptides. And so that guy, he's clearly a platinum patient. He wants it all. And so I shared with you 3 different examples, 3 different guys, 3 very different needs. And I've able to, in that initial consultation, been able to figure out which program is right for them. And I just share with them. I say, hey, these are the programs. This is the one that I think is right for you. But, you pick which one you think you'd like. And that's it. I don't sell. I want to be really clear. I don't sell anything. All I do is share how I can help them and let them decide. That's all.
Yeah. It's got to be a nice shift from, chasing your first customer. So
in the beginning, you're chasing. You're right.
Yeah. Actually, I have my own question, but the question here was, the concierge experience is so rare these days. Why is that? How do we fix that?
I overpay on staff. First of all, I'm guilty. Another mistake I've made. See, you make a lot of mistakes along the way, but you learn and you grow from them. Is I have overpaid for staff, and I do that intentionally so that I can find good quality people who will stay and provide that level of experience. And so I have one of my clients. He's a retired baseball player. You probably all know him. HIPAA reasons I won't share it, but he travels back and forth between here and Puerto Rico. Probably every month he's back and forth. So my concierge is on the phone with him because he needs a refill of his peptide, and we're figuring out exactly where he's going to be, when he's going to be there, so that we can know that when we ship it to him overnight, it is going to get to the right location. Those little details matter because I don't want to be shipping a cold peptide to his Sarasota, Florida address when he's going to be in Puerto Rico for the next month. And so little details like shipping, little details like refills, like my lab stuff, we draw labs here in the office. So any guy who needs blood work done, all the blood work's included in the program, and they do it right here in the office. Anytime they want to come in, they come in and get their blood drawn. Anytime they come in the office, we do body composition scans. And so we can track that as well. Whenever they need unlimited medical visits, the program has medical visits spread out every 10 weeks. So there's about only 7 visits in the program. But if a guy ever needs something in between, we get him in the same day. And typically it's a kind of a quick, easy question about a side effect of a peptide or something like that. And it's pretty easy to handle. Providing an exceptional experience will justify you charging top dollar.
Yeah. Quick question. So you have both kind of virtual model and a brick and mortar model. Why why keep the brick and mortar? That conversation is coming up quite a bit, especially last weekend.
Oh yeah, great question. So we do a lot of sexual health stuff as well. So in addition to the 3 levels I mentioned, we also do a lot of sexual health packages as an add-on. So you can do any of those 3 programs and then do GainsWave, PRP, exosomes, which is a whole other conversation. On top of that, we have an aesthetics package as well with Botox and filler. These are add-on packages to our programs. And so a lot of that stuff has to be done in the office here. And so we need that. Could you not do those and do this purely virtual? Well, yes and no. The key thing is, as physicians, if we're going to prescribe anything, you need to be licensed in the state in which you're providing care. And so those other, I forgot to mention this earlier, but in the gold and platinum programs, the 24 and 15K program, if I get on a call with a guy from Idaho, I can offer my program. Why? Because as part of that, I fly you into Sarasota, Florida on my dime, put you up in a hotel on my dime, bring you to the office on my dime, so that I can now see you in person, establish medical care, and now you can fly back to Idaho, and I have done it legally. I've now fulfilled my medical licensing requirements to take care of that guy because I've met him in person, and now he's a quote Florida patient in that regard. So that's really the key. That's why for my practice, I need to have a brick and mortar. Other practices, if you're doing coaching or if you're not prescribing medications, then yeah, you can probably get by without a brick and mortar.
Awesome. That was super insightful. I'm glad we were able to sneak that in because that question came up quite a bit last weekend. Yeah. But look, we're at time. This has been a great discussion. I want to thank all of you that joined us today and those that asked questions. If you're still watching this as a replay, you can still post your questions. We'll make sure it gets to Dr. Gapin. Thank you again, Dr. Gapin, for joining us today. So where can people find out about you, your clinic, and how to work with you or even train with you as a practitioner?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeremy. I have a professional speaking website you can check out, drtracygapin.com. My practice website is gapininstitute.com. And notice the language, then copy we use in that website. Notice the imagery. Notice the feel of it, how it is very specifically crafted toward my audience. So gapininstitute.com, drtracygapin.com is my professional website. If you want to get information about practitioner training and licensing program, et cetera, you can email me. It's doctracy@gapininstitute.com is my email. And I'll also show you one more quick thing you guys can do to see how I generate leads very quickly and easily. I'll be on a podcast and I'll say, hey, if you want to get my top 10 secrets to high performance health, just text the word health to 26786. And I'm going to share with you a couple free gifts. I'm going to share with you free download of my 10 Secrets to High Performance Health, as well as a copy of my digital copy of my best-selling book, Mel 2.0. And if you're interested in working with my team, there'll be a link to where you can click on the link and book a consultation right then and there. So I'm sharing that with you so you can see how I can generate leads and how I can provide free value, free content, and give them an opportunity to sign up for a consult with me. And now I have their information where I can follow up with them for more contact as well. So,
yeah. Sorry, they just cut off right over there. Well, this has been awesome. We'll make sure that everything that you just said was in there.
Yeah.
And everything's in the post. Anybody that does listen to this, where podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, it'll all be made available later. Cool. But so thank you so much for joining me. This has been great, and chat again soon.
Yeah, man.
All right, take care.